And then I'm going to give the microphone over to Miriam.
Thanks, Terry. I appreciate your help with these technical issues. I've been teaching college writing courses for so many terms I get lost track. And if you were to ask me what's the one skill that will upgrade my writing, given that I know how to write grammatically and with proper punctuation and spelling, what's the one skill that will upgrade the quality of my writing to an A paper? And I would say if you use transitional words and phrases, that's the key to a higher level academic writing. Because using transitional words and phrases helps your papers read more smoothly and at the same time allow the reader to follow your ideas from one point to the next. Now, transitions enhance logical organization and understandability. They improve the connections between your thoughts. They indicate relations, whether within a sequence, within a sentence, a paragraph, or a paper. You know, small words can carry a big load. If a friend begins a sentence with, "I owe you $100, would you prefer the next word be but or and? But signals a change of direction that would be negative. And is an addition most likely positive. If the next word was first, you could anticipate a sequence of events. So here is a pretty extensive list of the categories of transitional expressions. They perform different functions in your writing: exception, addition, example, time sequence, cause and effect, comparison, direction and place, similarity and restatement, where you can read the rest. Now the next slide will be some transitional words that belong to a certain category. While I'm reading the words and the example, try to think of what category they fall into. The words are also, again, as well as, besides, coupled with, furthermore, in addition, likewise, moreover, similarly. If you've been using any of these words in your academic writing, pat yourself on the back. You're a good academic writer. Here's an example of how addition transitional words are used. When there is a trusting relationship coupled with a positive reinforcement, the partners will be able to overcome difficult situations. What is the transitional phrase there? The transitional phrase is coupled with. What category does that belong to? Exception, addition, example, time sequence, cause and effect. Which one would you choose? Please write that in the chat window. And we're going to give you a chance to type it and then compare your answer with the one that we're putting in here. Good, Evan. A lot of people understood that it was clearly and in the addition category. Very good. Thank you. Let's go on to the next category. Which category are these words in? Oh, it's good. Accordingly, as a result, consequently. For this reason, for this purpose, hence, otherwise, so then, subsequently, therefore, thus, thereupon, wherefore, and the example would be highway traffic came to a stop as a result of an accident that morning, and the transitional expression here is as a result of. And what category would that fit into? Please go ahead and type your selection. If you're using any of these words in your writing already, you're in the right direction. And you can see the category is consequence. And that was a little bit out. Nobody chose that. Accordingly, consequently. That's interesting. But it could be very well cause and effect. I can see that it would work there as well. Okay, let's see how we think about the next one. These words are contrast, by the same token, conversely, instead, likewise, on one hand, on the other hand, on the contrary, rather, similarly, yet, but, however, still, nevertheless, in contrast. And the example is, the children were very happy. On the other hand, and perhaps more importantly, their parents were very proactive in providing good care. And the transitional word there is, on the other hand, falling into what category? Is it contrast and comparison, similarity and restatement, diversion, emphasis? What would you say? And let's take a look. Contrast and comparison. And most people agree with contrast.
Just let's show that first, that slide about the categories.
I have two categories there you could have chosen, comparison and consequence. So some of these do overlap. All right. I hope some of these are familiar to you. In the next slide. Here, there, over there, beyond, nearly, opposite, under, above, to the left, to the right, in the distance. You may be surprised that these words are in fact transitionals that link your ideas. She scanned the horizon for any sign, though in the distance she could not see the surprise coming her way. What category would that be? Time sequence, cause and effect, example, direction and place, and if you said direction and place, we're in agreement. Very good. No, it wasn't a part, this category is not a part of the email attachment. This is an additional category. But I think if you will print out that handout and have it by your keyboard when you are writing your academic papers, believe me, if you put them to use, your writing will be considerably better. It's a wonderful resource. And that is a handout from our GVC, Geneseo Valley Writing Center, that's very useful. What I'm doing now is just calling your attention to these words that most people do use, but just calling your attention to the fact that they can be considered linking words as a sequence and direction and place. Okay, moving on to the next one. By the way, incidentally, and the example is, he stumbled on the nesting pair incidentally found only on this hill. And incidentally, that category is not in your handout either. But would you say that it is a part of similarity and restatement, diversion, emphasis, contrast? Which one of those would you choose? And diversion is the one that we have for that. Let's go to the next one before we go back to your answers to that first one, because there aren't very many examples. Here's some. Above all, chiefly, with attention to, especially, particularly, and singularly. And the example is, the Quakers gathered each month with attention to deciding the business of their meeting. And would that go along with diversion? No, well, you know, it wouldn't. Exemplifying, contrast, consequence, or emphasis. You could probably tell by the emphasis in my voice that this one category is, in fact, emphasis. Let's go see what you've typed. Yes. And your printout shows contrast and cause and effect. Yes, there's some. but we could also call it a diversion as well, just as long as we're bringing these vocabulary words to the forefront of your mind while you're writing. All right, let's move on. What about these words? Try to use these in your writing. Aside from, barring, beside, except, excepting, excluding, exclusive of, and other than, and outside of, and save. Consensus was arrived at by all the members, exclusive of those who could not vote. And the category there, is it contrast, consequence, exemplifying, or exception? Which of those do you think would work? Contrast, consequence, exemplifying, exception. And that's not in your handout either, but just thinking a little bit about what the words I just gave you. Which of those would you choose? We're going to go on to the next one before we check your response. These words are chiefly, especially, for instance, in particular, markedly, namely, particularly, including, specifically, such as. And the example is, some friends and I drove up the beautiful coast chiefly to avoid the heat island of the city. Would this be addition, example, consequence, exemplifying? This particular category is not in your handout either. As I said, would it be contrast, consequence, exemplifying, or exception? And let's see what you have. It's exception for the top and exemplifying for the next one. Very good. Exception. Excellent. See, you already know a lot about transitional words and phrases. We're just bringing it to the forefront and encouraging you to use them whenever possible. Another category is this one. Comparatively, coupled with, correspondingly, identically, likewise, similar, moreover, together with. And the example is, the research was presented in a very dry style, though it was coupled with examples that made the audience tear up. Sorry, I should have put the coupled with in a red font, because that's the transitional word that's needed here. Would you say they're emphasis, sequence, contrast, exemplifying, or similarity? And restatement. Restatement is another thing that's good to do, especially in your conclusions. Here we have the category we're calling similarity. We could call it similarity and restatement too. Very good, very good. A lot of you understood that. When you're giving examples in your writing, it's always very good to use that sort of a transitional word. Now, the next category is in essence. In other words, namely, that is to say, in short, in brief, and to put it differently, and in the example is, in their advertising business, saying things directly was not the rule. That is to say, they try to convey the message subtly, though with creativity. Now, the red font should be on that is to say. What kind of a phrase is that? What function does that supply in your writing? I've already been talking about it, but this is to identify it more exclusively as a restatement. All right? And pretty much everybody understands that as a restatement. Very powerful writing to use these transitionals, and it's just academically fine to restate, especially when you're writing your conclusion. Moving on now to the next category. And you probably use these already. First of all, to begin with, in the first place at the same time. For now, for the time being, the next step, in time, in turn, later on. Meanwhile, next, then, soon. The meantime, later, while, earlier, simultaneously, afterward, in conclusion, and with this in mind. And the example is the music had a very retro sound, but at the same time incorporated a complex modern rhythm. What kind of category would fit for at the same time? And that's pretty obvious. Is it addition, example, time sequence, cause and effect, comparison? All right, you probably have that response already as a sequence. In this case, it's ordinal in time. There are different kinds of sequences. This is ordinal in time. And when you're writing your essays and you have certain examples as support, if it's a time sequence, it's a very good technique to say, well, first and later, and then with this in mind. But here's one you probably all use already. If you don't, you should start in conclusion. In conclusion, of course, with a concluding paragraph. So that's the examples, and we've worked through that in labeling their functions. Now we've been giving you some examples that are in different parts of the sentences. And according to A. Klaus, and if you've been taking my academic writing course, you know that we use this textbook. And she points out that one way to eliminate choppiness is to vary the placement of transitions. Transition in the beginning, of course, is when you start with "in other words," and you put a comma after it. You lied about being over there. Let me point out that comma after the transition in the beginning is essential. Commas are also essential when you use a transition in the middle. The prosecutor's idea, on the other hand, is that he killed her in a different place. Now, when you come to using a transition in the beginning, the comma is there because it fulfills the comma rule that you put a comma after introductory phrases, words and phrases. The comma here, before and after the transition, is there because it fulfills another comma rule about setting off parenthetical words or phrases from the main part of the sentence. You could take this phrase right out of there and you'd have a full sentence. But this is a parenthetical idea, a parenthetical notion that fits in the middle. And of course, at the end, here's the example. Many people think that owning a house is better than renting, comma, on the other hand. Okay, so don't forget the punctuation when you use transitional words. Now we're going to addition words. And we're going to give you an example. And we'd just like to have you tell us in the chat window which word would fit in the blanks. Which one of the words on the left would fit in the blank for the paragraph on the right. After causing a disturbance in the movie theater, Brian and his friends were asked to leave. I gave you the transition here. Furthermore, they were barred from attending that theater ever again. So that one's already done for you. That signals what? It signals addition. All right, the next one, you do get to choose from this list. For example, for instance, to illustrate, and such as, and including. What would fit here? Traffic seems to be getting heavier. Blank. Last year it took only 20 minutes to get to school and now it takes 30. What would you say would fit in there? Okay, we want to check that chat?
For instance, or example.
Okay, very good. You could use either one of those. There's not always one particular transitional word that would fit. How about this one? Some experts believe that a fetus in the womb can be affected by sounds, blank, classical music, or the mother's voice. What would you choose to make that comparison, and to make that illustration. Okay, let's take a look. Such as, or for example, you see, including would be a good one too, right? So these are all examples that fit, different kinds. Apply sunscreen while walking on the beach and blank swimming in the surf. Blank, reapply the sunscreen even if it is waterproof. What two would fit? Let's see. What would fit in there? I think it's pretty obvious that the first one would be the word first. And the next one, what would that be? Let's see what you have. Okay, does anybody have first and apply sunscreen while walking on the beach and
Finally. Then, before and after.
And then swimming, and before swimming in the surf and after reapply the sunscreen seems to make a lot of sense. Very good. Before and then also makes sense. Very nice. Thank you for your quick work here. To build a good financial foundation, blank pay yourself in the form of savings and blank pay your bills. I think that's pretty easy. Let's go see what you're doing.
First done.
First, pay yourself the form of savings and then pay your bills. Finally, as will work too, won't it? Very good. Thanks. And then we have one under the category of comparisons. If you treat someone with kindness, he or she will probably treat you in kind. Blank, if you treat someone with disrespect, you'll probably be disrespected. And you can choose the next one later. Let's see what you have for treat you in kind. Likewise, if you treat someone with disrespect, you probably in the same manner. It would be nice. Yeah, it would be. How about Portland is a port city in Oregon, Blanket is a seaport in Maine? Which one of those would you choose? Okay, well, check it. They're coming up with answers. Just as it is a seaport in Maine, I like. Everybody, others like it too. Okay. Nice work. All right. And we have a few more before I give you a caution. All right. Using a knife to cut a bagel can be dangerous to the fingers. And what word would you use to contrast there? Using a bagel holder keeps fingers safe from the falling blade. Let's go back and see what they've chosen there.
So we have even though on the other hand.
However, all of those, even though doesn't seem to fit as well as however and whereas. You see you have plenty of choices for that. Nice work. Let's go back and do the last one here. Today, many families eat dinner separately and on the run. Blank in the past, the family dinner hour was a time for bonding and an opportunity to instill values or share dreams. I bet we've got a good answer already typed in there. Conversely, while, whereas, on the contrary. Okay, I like whereas. Whereas seems to link it more smoothly than the rest. Nice job, thank you. And the last one of this type is the cause and effect category. Because of his work to end apartheid in South Africa, Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Upon his release, Mandela treated his oppressors with respect and worked to unite the country. Blank, he shared a Nobel Peace Prize with then President de Klerk. What would you choose? As a result, accordingly. Either one. Okay, thank you, Rana. As a result, consequently is good too. Cause and effect. That's good. I appreciate all these wonderful, quick responses. My goodness. And let's go to a caution. And this is very important. Because I have students who learn to use transitional words and they love it so much it appears in almost every sentence. So you can't overdo it. You should use them judiciously, please. Beginning each sentence with a transitional word or phrase or repeating the same one often is too much of a good thing. So remember to use transitionals judiciously. I'm going to stick some words to the Y's in here that have nothing to do with transitions. Okay, this is one of my pet peeves, and I think it might make sense to you all too. Never use the expressions being that or being as. I would much prefer to see you start with since. Okay? And here's another common problem for students is they have a tendency to overuse the apostrophe, especially when they want to use a plural. So even though your farmer puts up a sign in the fall that says pumpkins apostrophe S for sale, it's not proper. Just a simple S makes a plural. That's the kind of sign you want to see your farmer using in the fall. I don't know if we have time to go into this particular thing, but there's another category, another handout that did they get the handout on troublesome pairs?
If you did, maybe just raise your hand to indicate. Yes, Rhoda said yes.
Okay, good. Now that's there. It's also from the GVC Writing Center. And so what we're advising is that you try to find a mnemonic that would help you remember the difference. This is one of the most commonly confused pair, affect and effect, all right? So which one is which? Well, if you want to use it as a verb, as in pollen affects my allergies, just remember that the A at the beginning of that word means action, and action means the verb. And so if it's the noun that you want, what effect does it have on you? If it's not the action, it's got to be the E for effect. Okay. Now, I'm very interested in knowing what particular troublesome pairs trouble you, and if you have devised your own mnemonic device to fix it, but we don't have time to go over those today. And if you're interested in another workshop which would incorporate troublesome pairs along with perhaps another writing skill, to let us know. And how you could perhaps figure this out by using this troublesome pairs handout, looking at it, and making sure that you're using it properly in your own writing. And when somebody points it out to you that you haven't used the right spelling for the meaning, or when you discover it yourself by reviewing the definitions in your handbook, then you can think about how can I remember the difference between these two troublesome pairs, and perhaps come up with a nice mnemonic device to share with others in another workshop. So I really appreciate your attention today and your wonderful, quick responses, and to give you courage to go on and use additional types of transitional words and expression, and to encourage you to continue using them if you already are. How many people saw a lot of words that they already use in their writing? Raise your hand, please.
I don't know if Margot or Rick has questions.
Almost everybody recognized it. We just want you to know that this is something you're doing that has a positive effect and will stand you in good stead. Thank you very much. Okay? Now, you have questions? Please raise your hand.
So it looks like Sharon, just have her type in have Sharon type it in the...
Okay, Sharon, can you type your question in the chat box for us, please? And the others can type theirs in after Sharon. Huh?
Yes. Yes. Sharon is not typing.
Okay, well.
So you want Jeanette to type?
Yes, Jeanette. How about you? You want to type your... Oh, is there a single source, Jeanette, you would recommend to help with writing? Huh. Well, we have writing centers. We have the Writers Complex in ESC, Empire State College. You go esc.edu/writer. And we also have the Genesee Valley Writers Center, which is also online through the ESC library, called the GVC. Okay. Yeah. We also a link to Purdue, the Purdue OWL. I think if you just go ahead and Google that would be also very good with any writing questions that you have in terms of composition or particulars. And we're giving you the link to our I'm sorry, honey, that is not Writing Center, it's just plain writing/writing. Should get you there. At least when I was last time I went there.
The Writing Center, the Writers Complex. Yeah.
It is it? Okay. I'm sorry. Oh dear. When I was working, it's just changed on me. All right. Okay. I just didn't want to give you the wrong address. And you have used those sources, Jeanette. Well, very good. Can you make? You're certainly advised to continue. And if you've taken any writing classes, those textbooks are great. And now for citations and other formats, Diana Hacker's Pocket Style Manual will help you out. And you know, use the contents to look up what your problem is. If it's you know, whatever it is, even it'll help you with thesis statements, citing your sources. And was there another question?
I think Jay has a question.
What's the title of the Klaus book? I'm getting a little bit of a blank here. It's Troubleshooting is in the title. Sorry. I should have that at the tip of my tongue, but I don't. But if you look up A. Klaus and look up Troubleshooting.
Sharon still have a question if she does.
Sharon, how about you? Do you still have a question for us? We'll send you the information about the Klaus title.
Troubleshooting Guide for Writers is what it's called. There we go. Strategies and Process by Barbara Klaus.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Jeff. All right. Are the slides available for your personal use, downloadable in this PowerPoint? I believe they're being recorded, so they'll be available to you. We'll send them. Okay. You can use that as a resource too, certainly. That's why we're putting in the time to do this. And to see if there are any other questions. If you have any other concerns about writing, you can be in touch with us. Suggestions for other workshops are going to, you're going to have an opportunity to make suggestions. We're going to send you a list of common writing issues, and you'll even be able to suggest topics for workshops in the future.
I just put in the phone number as well
There you are.
as email address for academic support.
Okay, don't be shy. You can be in touch. You can contact the moderator at this number here, and academic support for any other issues in terms of writing. And all of this will be sent to you along with the survey, as you can read there. And we do appreciate your feedback very much. And we wish you a very successful term and college career with us. We're just as interested in your success as you are for yourself. And thanks again. Here's Terry.
Hi, everyone. Oh, no problem, Adisa. My question is, does Empire provide a link for APA style? Actually, what I can do is I provided a link to our library. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go back out there to the library again. And especially for citing, by the way, right on the library site it says Cite Your Sources. And when I select that, come on, as you scroll down, you look at the tabs. You got Citing Basics, APA, MLA, CSE, Chicago, so on and so forth. I'll select the APA for you, okay, and I'll just kind of push out that link. But my suggestion would be to visit the library, become familiar with some of the citing basics, and then obviously, you know, depending on your course, you might be required to use APA or MLA, or, you know, the professor doesn't care. The other point I want to make about the library is if you're really not sure after you've even looked at this information, the library does provide workshops. And the upcoming workshop, what's today? Today is the 25th, okay? So there is one tonight on using RefWorks. But there's also better sources, better papers. And if I look down on October 14th, there's a workshop from 6:30 to 8 p.m. conducted in Illuminate like we're doing today on the topic Citing Your Sources. I highly suggest if you're uncomfortable with this and you're not really quite sure if you're doing it properly, I would attend this workshop, okay? Now Ashley said, I use a website called bibme.org. You can search for book by the ISBC, paste website titles, and you're able to pick which way you should cite. Excellent, okay, never heard of that. Have you, Miriam? Nope, Miriam has never heard of that as well. So we're gonna write that down, check that out. Rada, okay, she said, never knew about these library workshops. Definitely. We have library workshops. We have workshops that take place at centers. If you're close to a center and you can attend those workshops, feel free, okay? Matter of fact, let me go back out here. If I go to the Learning Support tab, which I'm also going to push this out, if you look on this page under Academic Support and Study Skills, and then we have Study Skill Workshops, it will list all of the centers across the state, okay, and their workshop schedule, including the Center for Distance Learning. And if you are close to one of those centers and you see a workshop that you're interested in attending, you know, just follow their registration requirements or their process, and then attend that one. Some of them do provide some online, but the majority of them are on site at that particular location. Okay, so if you're a center student, Center for Distance Learning student that does not exclude you, okay, from attending these workshops, just like, you know, center students are welcome to join any of these CDL online workshops, okay? You are, the way we look at it, an Empire State College student, and so therefore all of the services that we provide across the state, across all centers, are provided to all students, okay? So I just wanted to make that point. So any other questions and comments? Hopefully I answered your question, Adesia. I'm hoping I'm not like killing your name there, so my apologies. What other questions can I answer for you? So academic support, some of you I recognize the names. My role here is obviously to provide this type of workshop so we can enhance, develop some of your academic skills. And I also oversee the peer tutor, the course assistant, and the academic coach programs. I also connect students that need additional assistance with writing, especially when it comes to developmental, where smart thinking is not the proper route for the student, but I ask that you come to me first, and then we look at your document to determine if in fact that's the right route, so we can connect you to a writing coach. So I just wanted to point that out as well. So anything else that we can answer for you? You're welcome, Robin. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much, Adesia. So we still have a couple more minutes. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know transitional words and phrases sometimes, do kind of trip us all up. We sometimes don't think about using transitional words. Sometimes we're not quite sure how to use them. Hopefully these examples, and again, like I said, you'll receive the PowerPoint. Always refer back to the PowerPoint. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Print it out. Okay, and play around with some of the transitional words that you're comfortable with. Maybe you come up with just a handful that you do use sparingly, obviously, through your paper. And like Dr. Russell mentioned, don't be so redundant about using the same ones, and especially don't using them constantly. Okay, so question: how long does it take to evaluate a paper once submitted to the Writing Center? Okay, so let me make sure that we're clear here. You're not submitting the paper to the Writing Center here at the college. You submit a paper to Smart Thinking, which is an online service tutoring as well as writing assistance. Typically, depending on the peak time of the years, 24 hours to 36 hours. Typically, I'm seeing 24-hour turnaround. You submit your paper, and you receive it back within 24 hours with suggested feedback of how to improve your paper. It is not an editing service, okay? So I just want to make sure we're clear. If, in fact, you were to be working with a writing coach, okay, typically that's almost immediate, especially if you're working online with a writing coach. And you get feedback, okay, once you make a revision, and then you make another revision, you get that feedback. So it's immediate, all right? So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, and Christina, go right ahead and type your question as well. Oh, you already did. Okay, so Damaris, thank you so much. Will we or have we already received a copy? No. You will receive the PowerPoint document when you receive the recorded link. And so today is what, Tuesday? You most likely will receive the link, the recorded link, with the PowerPoint Wednesday, Thursday. Okay? Christina, will the PowerPoint be formatted as a PowerPoint or through Illuminate? The PowerPoint will be formatted as a PowerPoint, okay, because that's how it was created. You will get the recorded link, okay, that recorded everything that happened here today. So hopefully that answers your question. So you're going to get two different items, I should say. You're going to get the recorded link, the PowerPoint, okay, which you can save to your computer and also print if you like. And actually you're going to get a third item, which is the survey link. Yeah, okay, so my guess, Christina, you had to switch back and forth. My apologies. We weren't sure how it was working on the other end. And so we were actually having a discussion about how we could do this slightly different next time, and we're thinking possibly Google Docs. Okay, so thank you for that feedback. By the way, any feedback when it comes to this presentation as far as the technology, let us know. We knew it might have been a little tricky, so it probably didn't work as best as we wanted it to, but hopefully it sounded like the information that was presented here today did make an impact, that it did come through, at least the information. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jeanette. Yeah, it might be just somebody else's computer might not work necessarily the same, you know. And unfortunately, I wish I could see it. If I had everybody sitting in front of me, you know, then I could check to see. So, okay, good. I'm glad it worked for you. Okay, great. Thank you, Cindy. All right. So, in general, okay, good. So anything else? Anything that was a surprise here today, just out of curiosity? Well, Jeff, let's go look. Hold on a second here. You know, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, you know, I believe, let me go back and look here. If I'm not mistaken, it has a lot to do with referring your work, basically referencing your work. And I think there's a manner, I believe you use it as footers. So let's just go out there and just look just real quickly so I don't give you the incorrect, okay, the incorrect definition, okay? So I'm going to the library workshops, and let's go to RefWorks. And I probably should have clicked on that as well. So let's look at the registration, and let's look at what is. So what is RefWorks? It's an online tool that the library subscribes to so that you can quickly and easily import citation information for your research sources, keep track of your research sources and the notes and files that go with them, create perfectly formatted citations and bibliographies with a click of a mouse. Now, the reason why I was kind of like, I wasn't sure about this, because I know that we have, I would say, a population that sometimes uses this, and sometimes they do not. And I know that some people have used this and like it, and some people use it and do not like it. So, I think it's worthwhile, quite honestly, if in fact you can come up with an easy way to cite your sources and to track your research sources. You know, I think any tool is great. I know that Word has the ability to do that, but I think it's a little clunky, okay, how it tracks your sources. So, but anyways, what it does is you'll learn how to create your own RefWorks account, manually enter citation information, import citation information from library databases for multiple articles at once, insert and format citations and bibliographies in a Word document. Okay? Now I know a lot of what the library does is hands-on. All right? So, like I said, this might be something that you all might want to review. So does that help? Yeah, see, Chris says she finds it, or he, I'm sorry, it's very clunky. So there's, I guess that's why I hesitated, because some people, like I said, like it, some people kind of don't. So, you know, really use your judgment. I would say it's worth, I think it's worth it tonight, okay, from 6:30 to 8. You just, like I said, you go here and you register, and then what they do is they provide you a link right there. And then you just attend, just like you did today, to that Illuminate workshop. You can always just say thank you very much and leave the session if you find it's not useful. Okay, Lisa Marie, I use Zotero and it works great. Okay, that's a new one as well. So Lisa, Zotero, is that something that can be found? Man, we're learning something new today, aren't we, Miriam? You guys are very resourceful, thank you. So we need to check that one out as well. What about Son of Citation? Does anybody use it? Okay, use for free online. Just Google also YouTube tutorial. Okay, we will do that. Thank you. Yeah, Miriam mentioned, yeah, Son of Citation, good. Yeah, that's also good as well. Great. Wonderful. It's free, easy to use, tool to help. You collect, organize, cite, and share your research sources. It lives right where you do your work in the web browser. Yes, it does. Excellent. I just wanted to see what other one bid me. Okay. Now, the one thing I am going to say, I really don't recognize some of these. You know, just a caution, because you really don't know who's behind some of these sites. Just make sure that they're formatting properly for you, okay? That's all. So just do a double check on your side. You know, even if you have to pull out that Diane Hacker, like I have the actual physical Diane Hacker book, and I will sometimes go there to do a double check when I'm citing sources. You know, if it's supposed to be in this format, but let's just say it's on a citation, although I haven't had a problem, but you know, if it's citing it slightly different, you know, yeah, you might, just a word of caution, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah, check with the library. That Miriam had mentioned too, is if you're not sure, library, they have live chats, okay, and if you're unsure, talk to them, all right? And matter of fact, if you go back, library chat is not on right now, okay, but when it is, the green light's on and you can ask, and someone's sitting there just like if you were to walk in the library. Okay, the librarian is sitting there, just like here, they're sitting waiting for someone to ask them a question, just virtually. Okay, any other comments? We can wrap this up. We've got about a minute. If not, we can wrap it up now. You're welcome, Debbie. You're welcome, Jay, Lisa, and Damaris, Adacia. I'll get that name right. Janice, Amanda, Jeanette, Ashley, Ashley, Jeff, okay. I'm not doing a very good job, am I? You're all very, very welcome, and Miriam says thank you as well. She appreciates your time and attention today. Okay, and look for the email with the information, and we hope to see you in another session. You're welcome, Charlene. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.